All right, so I want to talk about a very important subject now. That subject being insulin resistance. I don't know how familiar or how unfamiliar you are with that term, but insulin resistance is kind of the background theme for all cause mortality, meaning everything from cancer to heart disease to dementia to diabetes to hormone imbalancing, all of it. Even ADHD. I was doing research for a family and saw that ADHD has a component of insulin resistance. So I'm going to just treat this like you have no idea what I'm talking about. But insulin resistance is basically this. So let me just stay with diabetes. And I know a lot of you guys are working on other things and you may not even have diabetes, but it's easy to illustrate the point. And even if it's not full blown a problem enough to diagnose it as diabetes, you have insulin resistance building up with all conditions, all symptoms. So at least most of them. I can't think of any that don't. So or if you have the symptom, then it will lead to insulin deficiency or insulin resistance. So anyways, without getting on all these rabbit trails, here's the big idea. Diabetes, we look at two readings most of the time: your A1C, which most of us are familiar with, and your glucose levels, which we're familiar with. And so when I have patients come in and say, hey, I have diabetes, can you help me? I ask them, okay, let me see your labs. What are your numbers? And most of the time they know their A1C. Most of the time they know their blood sugar. The one that always gets overlooked, or most commonly gets overlooked, is insulin. I ask them, okay, what's your insulin levels? And it's never been measured most of the time, which is fascinating because diabetes, at least type 2, I'm only talking about type 2. Type 1 is a different animal, so set type 1 over here. This does not apply to type 1 diabetes, but type 2 diabetes it's a problem of too much insulin. It's not a problem of too much blood sugar, although that is a problem and it is associated. It's not the cause. The cause of the high blood sugar is the high insulin, because the higher the insulin, that means the higher the resistance to the insulin. So what most of the medications do is figure out, okay, well, how can I just lower the blood sugar? And the easiest way is to create more insulin. Create more insulin, we'll put it in there, but it's kind of like the cells are like a suitcase when it comes to insulin. And you don't need to get all of this. There's many videos to watch. We're going to talk a lot about this, but when it comes to eating, like the low glycemic diet and some of the ways I have set up for you guys to eat, the big idea is they reduce the amount of insulin resistance. They enhance the sensitivity so that instead of needing, let's say you need one molecule of insulin to bind to the cell to let one molecule of glucose into the cell, well, insulin resistance would be, instead of needing one insulin to get one glucose in, now you need 10 insulins to get one glucose in. And if that goes on long enough, then you need 100 insulin to get one glucose in. And so you just need more insulin to get the same response. But it's because your cells are deafened, they're full. And it's kind of like the suitcase analogy. Every cell is like a suitcase, especially when it comes to glucose. It can only handle a certain amount, right? And if you've ever gone on a trip, or even especially a long trip, and you got to get a bunch of stuff in the suitcase, in the beginning, it's easy to pack it in. When it gets to the end, sometimes, especially on your return flight, if you've gotten things where you have been vacationing, you got to jump on the suitcase and have somebody else stand on it while you try and get that zipper and that last piece of clothing or whatever it is in there, right? And that's the same with our cells. Is instead of saying, hey, why don't we just get another suitcase and kind of split this up? Insulin resistance is like, nope, stuff it. Nope, put another one in the suitcase, put another one in the suitcase, put another one in the suitcase. And then pretty soon you got to jump on all of your cells to get that blood sugar in, because there's just not enough capacity for the sugar to handle for the cell to handle the sugar. And so insulin resistance worsens when you just keep stuffing it. What we're teaching you to do here is your body will become more sensitive and less resistant to insulin. And then now you've got an extra suitcase instead of cramming everything into one. And we'll go through that more. There's many different analogies to use on that. You can use bowls, overfilling, or whatever you want to. But we're going to work on the signaling mechanism more than the blood sugar mechanism itself. I want all of your cells to respond to all of the hormones, especially insulin and cortisol, the way that they should respond. And again, we talk in another video about how another definition of life is your ability to respond to your environment and to respond to stresses. So if you have insulin resistance, you can't respond very well to stressors. Now, if none of this makes sense, I know it's confusing. Watch it again or watch another YouTube video and it'll start to click. But we'll talk a lot about this. But that's my basis. And it is not specific diet that you follow. You don't have to count calories. You don't have to track your macros. But it's basically like, hey, whatever I can do to keep insulin low is best for my health. And that's the lens to start looking through for making your decisions when it comes to protecting and preserving your health. Keep insulin low. That's the name of the game. Keep your nervous system interference low, which will help you keep insulin low, which helps you live a long, happy, quality life. All right? See you at the next one.